us to be able to see you. Recording in progress, so you might have to click on the Got It to get that box out of the middle of your screen, and I'll begin with a prayer, and then we will get into our PowerPoint presentation. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, we thank you for all of the blessings that you bestow upon us in this life. We thank you for the gift of this parish community. We ask you to continue to watch over and bless us as we make our way these days. We ask for the guidance of your Holy Spirit as we continue to move forward into to the place that you would have us go. We ask you to continue to give us wisdom and vision and energy and insight as we make our way forward these days. We also ask you to watch over and bless those for whom these days is a particular difficulty, gracious God, those who have lost their homes, those who have lost their jobs, those who find each day to be a struggle. We ask you to comfort them with a sense of your goodness and strengthen them with the support of the people around them, that they will know your great love for them, gracious God. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. It's nice to see so many of you. We're going to go right ahead and get started with a little PowerPoint here to take us through the past 55 days or so. It is hard to believe that it's just been since September 28th, just under 2 months since Hurricane Ian visited us. And as you can see from this timeline, that's a view of the inside of the sanctuary. Right now, it has, of course, been emptied of all of its contents, and there is drying equipment of various kinds doing the drying and the mitigation. So moving on to the timeline, this just to take you through how this all works. We began over there on the left. Step one was the immediate assessment and salvage operation. That began even before the causeway was open. We got out to the island by boat and began the initial assessment of the property and the buildings and began the salvage operation. We had insurance adjusters visit right away. After the event, they even were boated out there as well. So that was pre-causeway opening. Our insurance adjusters visited. We do have another insurance. We have a second visit for one of our insurance adjusters. The wind adjuster needs to come and visit again. That's going to happen very soon. The restoration company, FD Restoration, immediately began stabilizing and drying the buildings. And then there was removal of the contents and the cleaning of the buildings. We have entered into a structural assessment phase, and so a structural engineer has been hired to do an assessment of some of the damage to the floor in the parish hall and the floor in the sanctuary of the church. The pressure of the water underneath the building pushed some of that flooring up and caused some damage to some of the piers that flooring sits on. So a structural engineer has been hired to take a look at that and what would need to be done in order to remedy that. An appraisal of the building happened today. The appraiser was there and they began their work for the appraisal. So that's number 6 on our timeline here. And moving forward, number 7 will be developing a scope of work, what needs to be done to put the building back together. And then there will need to be bids with estimates for for that repair work. And then we will have to determine a plan and look at the costs there. Number 9, of course, the costs, the insurance, what insurance will pay, and then the possibility of a FEMA grant. The diocese has contracted with a firm, a consulting firm that works will work with all of the affected churches in the diocese. 18 churches in the Diocese of Southwest Florida sustained enough damage to file a claim with church insurance. And so collectively, we will likely be submitting a grant, we will be part of, what am I trying to say? Applying for a grant through FEMA. And then, of course, the last part of that is to implement the plan. Next slide. So a timeline of the past 55 days. This is an overhead view of the property and the buildings shortly after September 28th. This is the first aerial view on September 30th. You can see here pretty profoundly that the water is still in most of the parking lot, and you can see that awful gray muck that covered everything that it came into contact with. So here are some pictures in the aftermath from Periwinkle Way. You can see that the bell tower had fallen over and onto the roof of the porch. And from the left-hand picture there, you can see that the office door was breached, and so the water came into the office. And you can see that Noah's Ark lost a section of roof right along the edge where that little deck is, or where that porch is. So part of the roof came off of Noah's Ark in that place. Next slide. That's October 4th. October 5th was the first day that people could arrive by boat. And so on October 7th, we had the first tour with Steve and Jason from FP Restoration. You can see a little bit of what the parish hall and the sanctuary look like. And in that bottom right picture, you can see that the water line came up into the lowest, that lowest tier of windows in the sanctuary. But I would say nothing short of miraculously, only one pane of glass was broken in any of the windows in the sanctuary. Just one pane of glass had a stick that went through it and broke that glass, but otherwise the glass remained intact. So the roofs were relatively unaffected except for that portion in Noah's Ark, and the windows for the most part held as well, except for that one pane of glass. All of the windows in the steps up to the choir loft, they all remained intact, and it was really quite remarkable. Next slide. So there you can see the bells from the tower. The cross tried to remain upright there, and you can still view it from Periwinkle, kind of standing up there. You can see the extent of the debris that got piled in with the winds, and you can see the water line in the hallway going along between the sanctuary and the parish hall. You can see that the water was up about 4.5 or 5 feet there. So that's how much water we saw. This is October 11th, as FP was continuing to figure out what they needed to get out there for begin the remediation work.
Bill, are you going to hold off on questions till the end, or take them as they come?
No, we can take questions now. I can't see I'm seeing the screen. So if somebody has a question, we can do that now.
Robin Fiddler has a question.
Yeah, Robin, you can take yourself off mute if you're on mute and.
Yeah, it's actually me. It's Ray.
Oh, hi, Ray.
Hi. I have two questions. The first is on the adjuster. Is the adjuster who came, or I'm sorry, the appraiser who came, was that someone we hired for our own particular purposes, or is that someone that's hired by the insurance company, number one?
Yep.
And then on number two, I take it that the damages for Noah's Ark are basically wind driven and they're surge driven for the rest of the property. Is that correct?
Yeah, so in answer to your first question, the appraiser, we hired the appraiser.
Good.
And for your second question, that's yes, the ark's damage is wind damage. There is some wind damage in the other parts, the other buildings, of course, the tower being blown over onto the porch roof, some minor wind damage. There was some wind-driven rain into the windows above the parish hall. So if you imagine yourself standing in the parish hall outside the kitchen, looking up toward Periwinkle, those windows there, the force of the wind blew rain in and caused some damage to that part of the hall. So with church insurance, our policy for wind and our policy for flood are both with church insurance, and the wind adjuster needs to come back to do some more work. And then there is a kind of meeting of the minds to see what part of it is wind and what part of it is flood.
Okay, great.
That answer your?
Yeah, that does it well. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Ray. Betsy, I think I can see about 3 people and I can see Betsy.
I've been wondering about the organ. Just a simple question. How did the organ make out?
That's a great question, Betsy. So the choir loft was unaffected by the flood. Nothing came in from the roof there, so that all remained dry. The question about the organ has to do with it having sat for probably 2 or 2.5 weeks before they began to dehumidify the air in the sanctuary. So dehumidifying the air was a part of the mitigation work, but it was about 2 weeks after the event before they began that. So we don't know the effect of the humidity, the kind of uncontrolled humidity on the organ, because it is an electronic organ and electronics and humidity don't do all that well. And we haven't had a power source in church to be able to test it. The power hasn't been restored to our buildings, and so we can't just turn it on and try it out. So it has been covered in blankets and shrink wrapped. And when there is power, that'll be one of the things that we'll do is test out the organ. Great question.
Would that insurance for the organ be included with the whole total, or would that been listed separately?
I don't know if there's a separate rider for the organ or not, Betsy. Okay. That's something we'll have to look at.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah, great question. So on October 14th, we had a beach landing with Chuck Ketteman and church insurance adjusters. Equipment and crews came over by barge, And they also did a helicopter drop in order to get their equipment on the property. And you can see some of that there. You see those plastic tubes that are going around. That is part of the dehumidification process. They put in those large dehumidifiers. You can see them sitting there on the floor. And that actually tends to heat things up a little bit in order to get the humidity out of the air. And then they bring in the right kind of air-conditioned air through those large tubes in order to bring the humidity level down. They can't do that too quickly. I'm learning a lot of things about dehumidification and mold and remediation. They can't do that too quickly because if the wood dries out too fast, it will crack and warp. And so they need to bring that down at a consistent pace, but not too quickly, because that could potentially compromise some of the wood. I've been very, very impressed with the knowledge and professionalism of FP Restoration in this whole process. They really have been outstanding. You can see us there in the middle picture. That's kind of a charming one. You see Chuck pulling a beach wagon, and our adjusters and myself there walking along. We landed at Tarpon Bay Road. If you know that part of the beach there where the little washroom is, and then we walked down Tarpon Bay Road and turned right on Periwinkle and walked down to the church. And those days back in early October, the island was like a ghost town. There were very, very few people on the island apart from those first kind of workers that were on the island pushing the debris aside from the roads, and emergency workers, and then the beginnings of equipment from the restoration companies. And then on the right there, you get a little bit of an idea of what we faced when we went in. That awful, awful muck from the bottom of the sea covered everything. And it was either slippery like walking on an ice rink, or it just glopped on your shoes and caked on your shoes, and it was really hard to deal with. Next slide. So just a couple more slides here just to see how much water we got in. So that's in the gallery. You can see the water line there on the left, and then you can see on the right there in the office, the water line above the handles of the doors. And you just get a sense of how things get tossed around. It's kind of like a washing machine in there when it's all happening. So you see one of the signboards for the hymns sitting there in the hallway in the gallery. And the water dispenser that sits right next to the right next to the counter there in the office was actually all the way down at the other end in my office when we finally tracked it down. So it just gives you a sense of how things get pushed around and moved around. Next slide. By October 17th, 6 barge loads of equipment arrived, and crews began coming by boat. So you can see some of the large equipment that they set up to do the drying, big generators there, and drying equipment that began the process of drying the buildings out as they were removing all the items that got touched by seawater. Next slide. Drying continues in the sanctuary. They needed hazmat gear because of the air quality early on. October 19th, the causeway opened, and so crews and equipment began coming by road, but they were still barging things in at that point in order to be able to get things there as quickly as possible. And then I went into the sacristy with a crowbar there. You can see that crowbar in my hand, and got some items out of the sacristy with that. All of the drawers swelled up with the water, and so nothing would open. I had to pop the fronts off of drawers and cabinets in order to be able to get at what was inside. And then you can see workers there. People asked about the pews, and you can see what kind of condition the pews were in by the time we got to them, with the seats of the pews having been covered with that mucky water. And the pews were actually delaminating. You can see there on the left, they were delaminating by the time we got to them and just kind of coming apart by the time. And then that lower left shows that some of the pews were actually destroyed. They had come apart when they were pulled off of the floor and began running into each other. So it just to give you an idea of what the restoration crew faced when they were in there. Next slide. So here you see the ark. The ark was tarped and stabilized. The opening there to the sky was tarped, and you can see that some of the insulation on the right began to come down, and you can see some of the damage there in the ark. It's amazing. Some things were unaffected. They were sitting on their shelves like somebody had just placed them there, and other things had been tossed to the other side of the room. It's really something. So by October 24th, there's great progress in the sanctuary. The air is good enough that we can be in there without respirators. And you can see that they began removing the boards in the back, like you would remove drywall. They took those boards off, and they actually then go through with a serum peroxide cleaner and rags, and they wipe down all of the surfaces that have been touched by seawater. So you see members of their crew in there with their rags and this serum peroxide cleaner to mitigate the mold, and they do that on every inch that was affected by the seawater. Next slide. So there you have a shot of the parish hall on the left. That would be standing in front of the kitchen and looking toward what we call the periwinkle room. You can see, you can't see it real well, but the floor was affected most profoundly in the parish hall. When the water got in there, it looks for the point of least resistance. And one of those points was right around one of the pillars in the parish hall, and that actually pushed that flooring up about 2 feet in one spot. So that was just the force of the water underneath there affecting the piers that floor sits on. And then you can see the cottage has had all the drywall removed. All of that area has had the drywall removed, the Madden room, the Sunday school room, the washrooms. And then you can see the music room there. And you can see again the force of the water with some of the items in the music room. That's actually and that's all that drywall has been removed. So this one was taken a while ago. Those rooms are empty now, and all the drywall is out from the floor to the ceiling. We really do want to be grateful to the workers who put themselves in these situations in order to do this work. It's hot and it's muddy, and they have to be covered, and they have to be wearing full respiratory gear, and they go through and they hand wipe everything, and it is quite labor intensive, and we are grateful to those folks who did such great work for us. We're up to November 4th here. We still have dehumidifiers who are hard at work. So you can see now the parish hall and all the drywall being removed to the ceiling. You can see the offices there, and the same thing having happened, and then the gallery being open. So this is looking from the parking lot through toward Periwinkle. And you can see that that's all been opened up. That plastic is gone now, and all of the drywall has been removed, and it's empty in there, except for the equipment that still is at work. So you can see here the sanctuary floor. So this is the structural assessments. The areas of concern are the sanctuary, which had less severe bowing, and then that pretty profound bowing that happened in the parish hall. And you can see what happened with the water. The water came in, and it gets sucked back out rather quickly. The way that it was described is it just kind of keeps blowing in and building up, and then it exits very quickly, and that's what causes the earth to get pushed, and those concrete piers that you can see there having the earth kind of pulled out from underneath them as the water rushed back toward the sea. So that is, and you get a pretty good sense of how high the parish hall floor bowed up on that picture on the far right. Next slide. We had a staff and vestry tour with Jason from FP Restoration just a couple of days ago on November 19th. They have been very gracious about showing around, our adjusters and the appraiser and people from the diocese. We had the bishop out to the property 10 days ago or so, and they've been really good about showing us around and answering questions and explaining things. So the vestry was out there, and they had a chance to be able to see what it looks like. So just a few of the looking at the next steps here. Mitigation was completed on Friday, November 18th. Church insurance is going to return to reassess things now that debris is removed. And as I said, both our flood and our wind insurance is with church insurance. We have hired a private appraiser to complete an appraisal of our property. And FP is beginning to work on the scope of work. That's a next step in this process, is the scope of work for the rebuilding. And as I mentioned, the diocese has initiated working on a FEMA grant application that includes all the affected parishes in the diocese. And that's with DCMC partners. And I've had several Zooms with them, and they seem to know their business very well, and we're good at answering questions and giving us a sense of what they do. Once the insurance amounts are determined and the scope of work is complete, then we can move into the planning mode and looking at the rebuilding and return to St. Michael's.
Bill, Dottie Morrison had a question.
That's the PowerPoint. Dottie, yes.
I've heard talk that in some cases, structures that have sustained a certain percent of damage will have to upgrade when they redo to new standards. Is there anything that you've heard about that in relation to St. Michael's?
That is a really great question, Dottie. That is called the 50% rule. And that happens when you need to spend more than 50% of your appraised value of your property to return it to the condition that it was in before the event. And we do, that's a FEMA rule. That's not a Sanibel rule. That's a FEMA rule. And and we are held to that. And so our goal is to figure out how to be able to stay under that 50% of our appraised value and return the building to the condition that it was in before the event. And there's some thinking around that. There's people that have experience with that who can give us some guidance. FP Restoration has some experience with that. Our FEMA consultants have some experience with it, and so we'll look to people who have some experience with that to get the best guidance that we can get. And Bronwyn has a question, and then Phil.
Thank you.
Sure.
I had just learned about the 50% rule, that it's 50% of the value of the building, not the land.
Correct.
And that is a bigger issue, I think, for some properties. And I don't know how the church values both the land versus the building, but 50% of the building value can be used, I'm told.
That's correct, Bronwyn. It is the appraised value of the building, buildings. Bill Urian.
I understand that because of that 50% rule, that I don't know if it was the county, but the values of most of the properties on the Sanibel have been raised to accommodate restoration of a lot of properties that will come close to that 50% rule to help in rebuilding. Has there been a reappraisal of the value of the church?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the appraiser was there today, and that work has begun. This is an appraiser that we have hired to do an appraisal of our building. And I want to just interject here and thank Chuck Ketterman very much for his all of his efforts with the restoration company, with the insurers, and now with the appraisal. Chuck has just been great with working with these folks and asking questions and getting people things that they need in order to accomplish this work. Yeah, Chuck has been great, and I want to publicly thank him. Robin and Ray.
They're on mute.
I'm on now.
You're on.
I haven't started to talk yet. Yeah. So you can hear me now. Yeah. I think this. I'm glad you got yourself a private appraiser quickly and work from that. What the government does is, of course, helpful if to act as they did, but that's not often the controlling number. In fact, it's pretty rare. I think I've done a little bit of this work, and I think it comes down to how your own personal appraiser rates it versus the other people that might have a different view. And so it's good to get in early and work on that. So kudos to you. Yeah. Just quick, and I don't want to change the subject, but just a quick thought since I'm on here. A question Betsy had. Usually, it's my experience, and that organs get insured individually by the number of stops that they have. So if a carrier comes in at the opening and says, we will pay you $10,000, we pay $10,000 for organs, you can buy up based on the number of stops you have. Now, the caveat to that is, I always did it, my work has been involved not with electronic organs, so that could be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm not sure if the organ has a separate rider or not. We hadn't looked at that because it apart from having sat in the humidity, it wasn't really affected, and we just have to see what happens when we push the button to start it up. Mary Beth Gonzalez.
First of all, thank you so much for sharing these pictures and the progress with us. I won't dare ask what the estimated time frame is for completion, but I am curious. You know, we're so blessed to be at Peace Lutheran, and I'm just wondering, is there an expiration date on our relationship with them, or is it indefinite until we're home on Sanibel?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's nice for us to recognize Peace Lutheran for their gracious hospitality. They have indicated to us that we can be there as long as we need to be there. That's been what they've indicated. And they've actually opened their doors to St. Peter's Lutheran Church from Fort Myers Beach, which was also severely damaged. St. Peter's Lutheran is worshiping on Saturday mornings at Peace Church. So they have now opened their doors to two congregations that can't be in their own buildings. And we're very grateful to to Peace. And I want people to know that we're paying a monthly rent to them for the space, and that is covered. It's a provision in our insurance to allow for some payment during displacement that we can provide for them, and we're happy to do that. So, yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions? I just want to put Chuck Hedeman on the spot and see if he has any thoughts, anything that I might have missed, or something that needs to be clarified more fully, or taken back, or.
No, thanks, Bill. I think you did a great job of summarizing it. I just hope everybody understands this is going to be a long process. It's not weeks, it's months, and it's going to be several. And we won't know, we probably won't know our plan of restoration for another 30 to 60 days, depending on, we have a bunch of variables we have got to wrestle to the ground. So I wish we could say that we'd be there by the spring or whatever, but it's going to be many, many months before we're able to get back to the church, I think. And so I don't know that we can really guess at this point what it is. But I think you covered everything well. I think our next key steps are to, as I've explained to Bill, we have a multi-level mathematical formula to work out. And once we can get through that and get through this so-called 50% and all the permitting process and all that, get our hands around that, we'll have a better idea how long it's going to take us. We have some good news. They're going to be out to take the bus. The bus was underwater also. And so the bus is a total, and they're going to take it away here soon. And we're going to actually get a check from the insurance company for it, more than we expected. So that's some minor good news in all this.
You have to take the good news while you can get it. That's for sure. Yeah.
Barbara Maynard has a question.
Barbara. Oh, and you're on mute, Barbara.
Hi, thank you so much for all of this. Is the idea to try and build back more hurricane resilient in the future? Is that part of the plan?
So I think that anything that we can do to be more resilient would certainly make a lot of sense. But again, we're going to be working within the confines of trying to build back at less than 50% of the appraised value. So, those kind of hurricane mitigation, that all makes a lot of sense. If it can be done in a way that still keeps us under 50%, then I think it would make sense to look at that.
It's one of the
Definitely.
tough questions we have to answer.
Yeah. That's a good question. Mary Beth.
I don't know.
Is it possible when we rebuild to make the church a little bit more handicapped accessible for everybody?
Again, once we get to that point where we can look at look at plans and see if there are ways to make the church more accessible, that makes a lot of sense to do it at that point. To look at what doesn't work very well, what's too tight and narrow, and those kinds of things, and see if things can be opened up. If that can be done and is in terms of cost, if that can be done, then it certainly makes sense to do that.
So just a follow-up question. Bill, what do you need from us now? Besides our prayers, do you need more money? Do you need labor? What do you need?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, the life of the church continues. What brings me the most joy is church events these days. Sunday mornings at Peace Church at 11:30 to look out and see all the folks gathered and to look over and see the choir and Mike at the organ and to sing our songs and to pray our prayers and to be together and have coffee hour. That brings me the most joy these days. Prayer and potluck, all of the things that we're doing that we do as as Christian people and as Episcopalians. That brings me the most joy these days. So just keep hanging in there and keep participating and being a part of the life of the church, and that will bring me the most joy.
Gentleman had a question, and then Peter Blaze.
Oh, yes. Oh, Peter Blaze. All right, so let's go to Gretchen. I don't see Gretchen.
And I think Peter Blaze wins the contest for joining us from the farthest place down in Australia.
All right, let's go to Peter. We can come back to Gretchen then. Peter Blaze, good morning, or afternoon, or evening, whatever it is down under.
It's Tuesday morning down under. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And it's wonderful to see everyone, even under difficult circumstances. Wonderful presentation, Father Bill. Thank you so much. As my Irish grandmother would say, things could always be worse. It's a tough situation. A question for Chuck. Chuck, would there be an opportunity under any of the various ways we're thinking about funding to consider solar power for the church?
Peter, I'm sure we could consider it, and I think it would be a consideration a little bit down the road. I think the one thing we'll need to do as the church fundamentally has to be rebuilt from an infrastructure standpoint. All the electronics were ruined from the flooding. So as we think about redoing the electronics, we should think about, well, eventually maybe we would be implementing solar power. It's a little tough on the roof, given the way the old roof in the sanctuary. We've got to think about the new air conditioning system we were thinking about. We need to make sure at least the electronics are put in place appropriately. But I don't think we can do for example, an upgrade to solar in the early phases of this. We're going to have to think about that as down the road a little bit. We've got to get this back to the way it was as best as we can under the rules we have to operate, and then we can add on, and we can do add-on and things that we would like to have done.
Thanks, Chuck, and thanks for all you're doing. Father Bill, it looked like we may have lost the beautiful West Indian mahogany tree at the corner, the one the church was built around, the great tree by the parish hall.
Right by the music room there, the big tree right by the music room when you pull in?
Yes.
It actually only lost one limb, and the limb fell gently enough that it didn't puncture the roof that it fell on. So I think there were a choir of angels that lowered it gently to the roof over the music room, because the restoration folks went up there fully expecting to find large holes in the roof from that large branch, and there was very little roof damage, and they gently removed it, and the tree is coming back into green.
Praise the Lord.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Robin and Ray, you have another?
I just wanted to say, and when you talked about how having all the activities and services and everything, how much joy it brings you. And I just wanted to comment that I am so grateful for everything that you and the staff and the team and whoever's to do this. I don't think there is any other church on Sanibel that has been able to maintain their church community the way we have. And for those of us who are, as we're all dealing with some loss, and especially for the ones that are still here and dealing with loss as opposed to, you know, people who have had to go back somewhere else until they can come back. But it is such a source of strength. And I just am so appreciative. It's just been a huge blessing to be able to have that, as you said, from the very first day, the church is the community, and it is strong, no matter what shape that building is in.
Mhm. Thank you for that, Robin. And it's really been wonderful to see people just kind of dig in. Dear Betty took over with the Altar Guild to get us set up on Sundays, and it's different terrain. The Altar Guild loves their terrain, and they love when they know where things are and how they go. And it's a different world at Peace Lutheran. And dear Betty and Mickey and others that have been helping with the altar have just been wonderful about that. And lots of people have dug in to keep us going and to do the things that we do. And more than 140 people have been showing up for services on Sunday. So that's really been nice to see that people coming out.
Bill,
Thank you
in
for that.
acknowledging people, we really need to acknowledge Sue also, who has kept a lot of this going and on site and through all this. She's really been kind of the glue that's kept us all in place.
Kept me together. Yes, thank you, Sue. I think Georgiana had her hand up. Where did I see you there, Georgiana? There you are.
Yes, I do. Maybe an unpleasant question. I'm just wondering about the day-to-day finances. Is there enough to cover everything that we need, or?
Oh, that's a great segue, Georgiana. Thank you for that. So the stewardship committee came together, and with the blessing of the vestry, decided to hold off on the official stewardship campaign for 2023 until January, to give people a little more time, those of us that are dealing with insurance and repairs and those kinds of things. So the official campaign won't kick off until sometime in January. We'll still have neighborhood gatherings, and we'll still have the mailing and all those kinds of things in January. But we did send out, and if you haven't received it, you will soon, a letter and a pledge card. If you are able to pledge now, that is certainly welcome, and that's helpful to us. Pledging is how we kind of set the budget and know what our income is going to be for the coming year. If you are able to make your pledge now, that's very, very helpful. But again, the official stewardship campaign won't kick off until January, to give people a little more time to get their own household in order to be able to do that. And it's likely that this is going to have an impact on some people, that it will impact their ability to give to the church. And so if you are able if you're in a position to be able to give a little bit more next year, that would be very helpful.
What about present? I hate to say this, but what about present bills like salaries? You said we were giving something to the Peace Church for the use of their building. Is there enough?
Yeah, right now the budget is pretty good. We had a vestry meeting last Thursday, and things are on target for 2022. Because people have been generous. Our financial position and cash flow is fine at this time. And the Hurricane Relief Fund is up to a little over $130,000, and that will be divided up between restoration of the building and parishioner needs and the needs in the community. And so we have a couple of people that are working on looking at providing grants to organizations on Sanibel that are right now reaching out and helping people. That's the community part of it. And then my discretionary fund has been enhanced with some of the funds from the Hurricane Relief Fund for parishioners who have needs, and I'm able to do that. And then there will be funds there to help for the rebuilding as well. So
just an additional statement, my contribution was returned to me. The mail said they couldn't forward it. I don't know if other folks have had the same problem or not. Now, where do I mail that?
Did you send it to the church office?
When I asked you initially, some time ago, you said to send it to the Sanibel address. And
Yeah, mail is getting forwarded from the church office address.
and that isn't working.
Uh-huh. All right, well, we'll
Why don't
have
you
to,
Type in the chat your home address, and you can also mail things directly to Susan. She'll put it in the chat here.
You mean Susie or Susan Gonzalez?
Susan Gonzalez.
Okay, all right.
Bob Syverson.
Maybe you could put an address on the website?
Well, we don't want to put Susan's personal address on the website. We're very careful
Yeah,
about that, but
That's true.
well, we'll get-
Georgiana, we can email it to you. I'll email it to you.
I'll send it to Susie Wilson.
Thank you, Susie. All right, Bob Syverson.
I would just like to compliment Bill for his leadership through this process, along with his trusty sidekick, Sue, from the early days when they were coming across by boat, trudging on the island, having to walk, 1.5 miles each way, wearing hazmat suits, wearing respirators, and everything that Bill and Sue, their tremendous energy level have led us through this. I think we really owe them all a great hand of applause.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're here.
Thank you.
and there's lots of people on this screen that have helped us. When we would get off with a bag of soppy, wet stuff from altar linens and silver that, and we just have to quick call someone and say, okay, can you just come get this? And people always said yes. And Susan Gonzalez's garage is full of stuff. She's kind of been the storehouse, but Ann and Sylvia and Susie and Luann, and I'm gonna miss people, but so many have answered the call and are storing chasubles in their closets and silver under their bed, Betty Moody's, and really been a great help, and dropping off meals at the end of a long day. We'd get off the island and there'd be a meal at our door. So thank you to all of you for your support.
A quick thought, the Delmans are trying to get in. I've seen that hand waving a long time. I don't know if somebody missed it or not.
Oh, thank you, Roger. Nice to see you, Roger Foote.
Oh, nice to be seen. Thank you.
Great to see you.
Great to be here.
So we got Gretchen. Yeah, I see. All right. You're down on the left there, Gretchen.
All right. I just wanted to double at this point what Bob said. We really, really appreciate those updates every day, and the fact that we are so far away. We really aren't. We are. And it's been able to keep contact with you. We go to church here and we have our schedule here to make sure that we always in time to live stream you folks, and we watch everybody, and it's just wonderful. I think there were about 90 people back the first time, and as you said, it's been over 140, and it's to see you staying in community warms our hearts so much, because that's what it's all about. And all of you, don't ever give up. I know you're going through horrible things. I can't even imagine what it would be like in the cases of those of you who have really lost homes and everything. And we have been supporting both Fish and the Relief Fund, and we'll continue to do so. As soon as California sends me a little bit more, we'll send you a little bit more. But we thank you, and the opportunity for Zooms. Sue, I know you have done so much so that we can get these Zooms up, and people who, like us, are technologically basically not too overly bright. are able to get things done anyhow. So we thank you and we really appreciate it, but we appreciate all of you and all of the ones who aren't on this screen now, who are staying together and helping each other and being there. And it's just being there is what's important, and you are. And we thank you and hope we both live long enough to get back again.
Thank you, Gretchen. Very nice. There is a wonderful spirit at St. Michael's, and I knew it from the first moments of being there. And, you know, Sue and I love St. Michael's, and we love all of you. And so being a part of this recovery effort and working hard to bring the church back is, you know, what we're called to do right at the moment. And we'll just continue to do our best. Any other questions? That
Looks like
anybody-
Sylvia Hyder's
Sylvia
raising her
Hyder.
hand.
Sylvia, I don't see you on my screen, but you're out there somewhere.
You're on mute. Just unmute.
Hi, Father Bill and Sue, what's an update on your home?
Oh, yes, thank you. So, some of you know that we didn't have any water on our living level. We had enough elevation that we were within about 1.5 feet of water on our living level. We didn't have water in the garage and the crawl space, so we lost a car. We had some roof damage, need to have the roof replaced. Our pool cage fell into the pool, so that'll need to be replaced. So those, you know, those kinds of air conditioners covered by salt water doesn't start up again, you know, those kinds of things. But we do feel very lucky for our not having the same kind of problems that lots of others do with tearing out sheetrock and lots of loss of things inside the house. So thank you for asking.
We hope to be home by Christmas.
Yeah, we're getting there. Anyone else? Keep your eye open for Advent offerings. Advent is beginning on Sunday, so we have a Thursday 10 a.m. Thanksgiving service with a little brunch after, and then Sunday begins Advent, and there will be some materials for Advent, and we're going to have some special Advent offerings, including a Zoom with an insurance person. And I'm looking on my calendar to see that that is Tuesday. We just got that lined up. And that is Tuesday, the 29th at 6 o'clock. We'll have a person to answer your insurance questions. And then another Advent offering that we're still in the process of getting lined up is a Zoom visit with friends of ours, David and Jennifer Knight, who were, David was the rector of a church in southern Mississippi during Katrina. And he guided his church through Hurricane Katrina. And he and his wife Jennifer are going to Zoom and just kind of talk about their experience and just give us some insight on how to deal with these kinds of things, and you know, spiritually, emotionally, physically. How do you get through something like this? So we don't have a date for that yet, but when we do, you will you'll know about it. It'll be an evening Zoom, likely on a Wednesday evening. Peter Blaze.
I just wanted to say to everyone how much it's really warmed my heart to be here today, to hear all this, and adding my blessings and thanks to those who are working so hard. I just was reflecting, Father Bill, that maybe that mahogany tree spared the roof because we spared the tree when we built the church.
Ah, that's a nice thought. I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you for that.
And just wanted to clarify, the November 29th insurance Zoom is not about the church and their insurance.
Oh.
It's the time for you. It's a person who is co-founder of an insurance agency who will answer your questions that you might have about your residences and dealing with insurance, and is going to give some, you know, tips and tricks and what not to get caught into and that type of thing. So that's as a service to you. It's not going to be about the church insurance.
Thank you for that clarification. I didn't want people to be confused. Yes, it's for your own needs and your own questions that you might be having about your own situation. Thank you for that. That was a great clarification. Anything else for this evening or this morning if you're in Australia? Thank you all very much. It's been wonderful seeing you. Great to see you, Roger Foote, too, all the way up in Ohio.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bill.
Ohio.
And Sue.
Thank you.
And Susan.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Susan.
Susie.
Thank you, Sue.
God bless
Thank you.
and stay well.
You too,
God
Paul.
bless.
Thank
God
you,
bless
everybody.
everyone.
Oh, Nancy was there. See, I don't get to see people on the second
Yes, I did see,
page.
yeah.
Oh, there's Polly. Hi, Polly.
There she is.
Nice to see you.
Thank you,
Debbie.
Oh,
Debbie
Good to see
You have
McCulkin.
to use the arrow to move your screen.
I missed everybody on the second page. I'm so bummed.
pages.
There's
There she is.
Alan, nice to see you. Penny Lind is there. Susie
Maybe she'll-
Post. Oh, man.
There
They
were
just
3
keep.
pages.
Oh,
You know, Bill,
3
you can
pages
move,
of
you can move
people.
an arrow and get to the next pages, you know.
you know, I was so focused on the PowerPoint and trying to make sure I got through everything without bungling it too badly. Nice to see you, Debbie.
Hi, good to see you. Thank you.
You're up in South Carolina?
Yeah, I'm in South Carolina.
How are things up there?
Going well. It's a little cool, but I have a winter jacket now.
Looks like you have a sweater on. It's sweater weather, huh?
Yeah, I have 2 sweaters.
Not as cold as it is in Minneapolis, freezing out here. Oh, there you are.
That's right. You're in Minneapolis, Ann.
I am, and it's really cold. See, I've been wrapped up in a shawl.
Father Bill, you have to see the new Parker.
Oh,
Oh, cute.
Oh,
This is
oh,
a little yellow lab.
Oh, so cute.
Oh, that's Polly Parker, honey.
oh, cute.
that is wonderful.
Yeah, it is. She's great.
What a cutie.
All right. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes, you too.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.